The last thing I remember before I lost consciousness is my husband's face. He wasn't crying. He wasn't scared. He was doing math. I was 54 years old. I had built a logistics company from nothing, from a spare bedroom in Columbus, Ohio, with a secondhand laptop and a maxed-out credit card. And in that moment, collapsed on the floor of my own conference room, with my heart giving out, the only thing running through his mind was how much time he had left. My name is Diane. And this is the story of how a 10-year-old boy that nobody listened to saved my life. I remember it was Tuesday because that morning we had just signed the biggest contract in the history of my company, a $2.7 million distribution deal with a freight network out of Chicago. I had spent 14 months building that relationship, 14 months of early flights, cold hotel rooms, and dinners I barely touched because I was too wound up to eat. I was standing at the head of the conference table, pen in hand, smiling for the first time in weeks, and then something hit me in the center of my chest. Not pain, not exactly. It was more like a circuit breaker tripping, a sudden absence, like the power going out in a building all at once. I grabbed the edge of the table. I heard someone say my name. Then I heard the contract pages sliding off the table and hitting the floor. Then I heard nothing at all. I woke up 3 days later in the cardiac unit at Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. My husband Ryan was sitting beside the bed, not holding my hand, looking at his phone. When he noticed my eyes were open, he said, "Oh, you're back." Not "thank God," not "I was so scared," just "you're back." Like I'd stepped out for coffee and taken too long. I didn't understand the coldness of it yet. I didn't know what had already been happening while I was under. I didn't know about the phone calls, the meetings, the attorney he had quietly contacted 2 days after I was admitted. I didn't know any of it. But my son did. I met Ryan Hayes 11 years ago at a fundraiser in downtown Columbus. He was charming, funny, the kind of man who remembered everyone's name and made every person in the room feel like the most interesting person there. He was also broke in a way that wasn't immediately obvious. The suit was nice. The watch was a gift. The apartment, I found out later, was 3 months behind on rent. I didn't find that out on the first date or the second. By the time I found it out, I was already in love with him, or with the version of him I had decided to believe in. In the first 2 years of our relationship, I paid off $23,000 of his personal debt. He said it was a loan. We never talked about it again. When we got married 6 years ago, I brought him into the company as Director of Business Development. It was a title that suited him. He was good with people, good in rooms, good at making clients feel warm and welcome. He wasn't good at logistics. He didn't need to be. I paid him $91,000 a year to shake hands and show up. The vacations I planned and paid for over the course of our marriage, 3 trips to Hawaii, a week in Tuscany, a 10-day cruise through the Caribbean that I booked as a surprise for our 3rd anniversary. The cruise alone cost $14,200. And then there was Marcus. Marcus came to us 5 years ago. He was 5 years old. His biological mother had passed away from an illness, and he had no immediate family in a position to take him in. We went through the foster system. Ryan was lukewarm about it from the beginning. He called Marcus a lot. He said the kid was closed off, difficult, hard to read. Marcus wasn't any of those things. He was quiet. He paid attention. He noticed everything and said nothing because somewhere in his short life he had learned that children who are too present make adults uncomfortable. That silence of his, that careful, watchful, absolute silence, is the reason I'm alive today. And then there was my best friend, Karen. Karen Whitfield and I had been close for 22 years. We met in grad school, lost touch, found each other again in our late 30s. She had been at my wedding. I had been at both of hers. When her second marriage fell apart, she called me from a parking garage at midnight, crying so hard I could barely understand her. I drove 40 minutes to get her. When my company started growing, I brought Karen on as VP of Operations. She was sharp, organized, and I trusted her completely. Her base salary was $118,000. Last year, her bonus was $31,000. 22 years. I would have told you she was the person I trusted most in the world after my mother. I was wrong in a way that still takes my breath away. 4 days after I woke up in the hospital, my cardiologist sat down across from me and explained what had happened in plain English. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition where the heart muscle thickens in a way that can disrupt the electrical system. Likely congenital. Probably there my whole life. Triggered most likely by years of chronic stress and overwork, I needed surgery. An ICD implantation plus a procedure to reduce the obstruction. Not immediately, not that day, but within 3 weeks. The surgical risk was described as moderate to significant. In the event of complications during the procedure, my doctor asked me, "Do you have a designated healthcare proxy? Someone with medical power of attorney?" I said yes. I said my husband. Ryan was sitting next to me when I said that. He put his hand on my arm, his fingers were cold. The doctor also recommended that given the recovery timeline, 4 to 6 weeks of strict rest, I think about temporary guardianship arrangements for Marcus. Just a precaution. Someone trustworthy outside the household. I thought of Karen immediately. "She's perfect," Ryan said. Right away. Too fast. I filed that away somewhere I couldn't quite reach and forgot about it. What I couldn't see, what Marcus could see, because Marcus was always seeing things the rest of us missed, happened 6 nights before my surgery. He was sleeping on the pull-out sofa in the family waiting area just down the hall from my room. Ryan and Karen thought he was asleep. He wasn't. Through the wall, he heard everything. Ryan's voice, low and quick. Karen's voice, lower. And then pieces of a conversation that no child should have to carry alone. The company's current valuation is somewhere between 3.8 and 4.1 million. If the assets transfer to my name before the surgery, through the durable power of attorney she already signed, then legally. And Karen. What if she pulls through? And Ryan. The doctors have been very clear about the risk level. If she doesn't make it, everything is already in position. If she does make it, we have the paperwork. Her attorney is an old friend of mine. We have documentation ready that could support a cognitive incapacity claim post-surgery. People come out of cardiac procedures confused. It happens. A pause. The doctors will chalk it all up to a weak heart. The main thing is getting the signatures before she goes into the OR. Marcus was 10 years old. He lay on that pull-out sofa in the dark and did not move, did not cry, did not make a sound. In the morning, he ate breakfast with Ryan. He helped carry the cups to the trash. He answered questions in one word, like always. Inside, he was planning. 5 days before my surgery, I was transferred to the cardiac surgery unit on the 4th floor, a quieter wing. Fewer people, more machines. Marcus came every afternoon with Karen. I would watch him walk in, backpack on, library book in hand, face neutral. And something about the way he moved felt different to me. A tension behind the eyes, a way of looking at Karen that wasn't quite right. I asked him once when we had a few minutes alone if he was okay. "Yeah," he said. And he sat down and opened his book and read for 45 minutes without looking up. I didn't push. I should have. Karen told me he was processing, that it was normal, that kids his age didn't have the emotional vocabulary for situations like this. "Give him time," she said. "He's fine." 2 days before the surgery, Ryan came in with a manila folder. The attorney put together the standard durable power of attorney, he said, "so I can handle company decisions while you're in recovery. It's routine, just a precaution." Our company attorney was a 71-year-old man named Gerald who had worked with me since the beginning. He was meticulous and cautious and would never produce a document without calling me personally first. He hadn't called. The letterhead on the document was slightly wrong, a different font, a different address. I said I wanted to read it carefully. Ryan said the attorney needed it back that afternoon. I said I'd think about it. That night, Karen came alone. She brought me a chai latte from the hospital Starbucks. She remembered my order after 22 years, of course she did. And she sat on the edge of the visitor's chair and held my hand and said, "Diane, I need you to hear me. Ryan loves you. He is exhausted and terrified, and he's doing everything he can to hold things together. Don't let your anxiety about the surgery make you paranoid. Don't blow up your marriage over paperwork. Be the bigger person here. Be the bigger person. Don't ruin things. Don't be difficult." I signed the basic healthcare proxy, the standard one, the one that had always existed. I did not sign the asset transfer. I told Ryan the rest could wait until after I was out of recovery. He pressed his lips together and said nothing. Karen looked out the window. That night, while I slept with an IV in my arm and a monitor tracking every beat of my heart, Marcus got up from the pull-out sofa. He was gone for 38 minutes. He told me what he did that night about 2 months later. We were sitting on the back porch of the house, our house, just the two of us by then, and he had a mug of hot chocolate in both hands, and he talked the way he always talks when he's explaining something important. Slowly, in order, without skipping anything. He said he waited until Karen was asleep. He counted her breaths. When they went slow and even, he sat up. He put on his sneakers. He picked up the small backpack he'd packed earlier that day without telling anyone. Inside the backpack, one sheet of hospital stationery he had taken from the nurse's station 2 days before, folded into his math workbook. One blue pen he always kept in the front pocket. He went to the family bathroom at the end of the hall, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub under the fluorescent light, and he wrote, "They are waiting for her to die." 6 words. He pressed hard with the pen so the ink was dark and impossible to miss. He folded the paper twice, put it in the front pocket of his hoodie. Then he went looking for my doctor. This is what people don't understand about Marcus when they call him closed off or hard to read. He is neither of those things. He is precise. He does not act until he knows exactly what he is doing and why. He didn't go to the nurse's station. He knew that if he walked up to a nurse at 2 a.m. and started talking about the adults in my life, they would call Karen. They would bring him back to the room. They would tell Ryan. He went looking for Dr. Okafor, specifically, my cardiologist, the one who had sat across from me and explained everything with such careful, unhurried honesty that even I, a person who deflects with logistics and spreadsheets, had felt genuinely seen. Marcus had spent 4 days memorizing that name from the badge, from the charts on the door, from the way the nurses said it in the hall. It took him 22 minutes to find him. Dr. Okafor was in a consultation room on the 2nd floor, reviewing files. He looked up when the door opened and saw a 10-year-old boy standing in the doorway in a hoodie and sneakers at 2 a.m. "Hey," the doctor said, "are you lost?" Marcus walked up to him, reached into his hoodie pocket, took out the folded note, and placed it on the desk in front of him. Then he turned around and walked back to the family waiting area. Got back on the pull-out sofa, pulled the blanket up. Karen was still asleep. Dr. Okafor opened the note at 2:24 a.m. He read it once, then again. Then he picked up the phone. I know the exact timeline because the hospital's security system logged everything. You can see it on the footage, a man in scrubs standing very still in a hallway, reading a piece of paper, and then walking very quickly toward the security office. By 3:15, hospital security had been briefed. By 4 o'clock, a call had been made to the Columbus Police Department. By 6 o'clock, there were 2 plainclothes detectives in a consultation room reviewing the situation with Dr. Okafor and the hospital's legal team. I knew none of this. I was asleep. The monitor beeped. The IV dripped. My surgery was at 9 the next morning. They prepped me at 7. Vitals, blood work, the anesthesiologist coming in to explain what I would and wouldn't feel. I was calm, the way you get calm when you've run out of road to be anything else. Ryan arrived at 8:15. Karen came 20 minutes later. They walked in together carrying Starbucks cups and a paper bag from the bakery down the street. Blueberry muffins like it was a Sunday morning. "How'd you sleep?" Ryan asked. "Fine," I said. They wheeled me into the OR at 8:55. I watched the ceiling tiles moving above me, the big OR doors, the cold of the room, the lights, then nothing. Coming back was not like the movies. There was no dramatic gasp, no sudden clarity. It was more like surfacing through cold, dark water, slowly, reluctantly, with a low mechanical hum pressing in from all sides. I couldn't move, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't speak, but I could hear. First the machines, then voices. 2 voices, one was Karen's, the other was Ryan's. They were standing at the foot of my bed. I knew it from the direction of the sound. They were speaking quietly, the way people speak in a hospital room when they think the person in the bed is somewhere far away and unreachable. Karen said, "We should have done this sooner. I'm so tired of pretending to be the supportive friend." Ryan said, "Relax. First the funeral arrangements, then we start our actual life together, with her money." I want to tell you I felt rage, hot, immediate rage. I didn't. What I felt was colder than that, a kind of absolute stillness. The feeling you get when something you half suspected but refused to believe suddenly becomes entirely and irrevocably real. I tried to move my fingers. I couldn't. I tried to open my eyes. I couldn't. I tried to make any sound at all. I couldn't. And they kept talking, relaxed, unhurried, standing at the foot of my bed in a room they believed contained only a body, no mind, no witness, no memory forming. They were wrong. Because in the corner of that room, a corner I couldn't see but that Dr. Okafor described to me in detail afterward, stood 2 Columbus PD detectives in civilian clothes, a hospital security officer, and Dr. Okafor himself standing near the door with his arms crossed and a tablet in his hand that was recording audio and time-stamped video. Every word. When Ryan reached toward the bedside cabinet where my personal documents were stored, the folder with the power of attorney documents he had been trying to get me to sign, one of the detectives said quietly and clearly, "Mr. Hayes, stop right there." Ryan went still. Karen stepped backward and hit the visitor's chair. The sound of it scraping on the linoleum floor is something I can still hear when I close my eyes. I couldn't see any of it, but I heard it. Through the fog and the hum and the weight of the anesthesia still pressing down on me, I heard every second of it. And with everything I had, every ounce of will I had left in a body that had just been cut open and stitched back together, I moved the fingers of my right hand. Maybe half an inch, maybe less. Dr. Okafor saw it. He stepped to the side of the bed and took my hand. I squeezed. He knew I was there. The investigation took just over 4 months. During that time, I recovered physically in the quiet of a house that felt enormous with just Marcus and me in it. I changed every account password, every access code, every lock on every door that mattered. I called Gerald, my real attorney, and spent 3 mornings going through every document Ryan had touched in the past year. I did not cry. Not once. Not because I wasn't hurt, I was hurt in ways I'm still finding words for, but because I had learned somewhere in that hospital room that clarity is more powerful than emotion. That a woman who knows exactly what was done to her and has the documentation to prove it does not need to perform her pain for anyone. The notary Ryan and Karen had enlisted, a man who had agreed to prepare fraudulent documentation supporting a post-surgical cognitive impairment narrative, surrendered his license as part of the resulting legal process. Ryan was charged with fraud, conspiracy, and attempted financial elder abuse, a charge that carries serious weight under Ohio law. Karen faced charges as a co-conspirator. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday morning in October. I wore a dark blazer, I had a legal pad with columns of numbers. I knew every line of our prenuptial agreement. Yes, I had insisted on one, and yes, he had signed it with that easy smile of his, never believing it would matter. And under its terms, what he was entitled to from what I had built was essentially nothing. He sat across from me at the notary's table, and for the first time in 11 years, I watched that easy smile fail him completely. "Diane," he started. "Sign," I said. He signed. When I walked out of that office, Marcus was waiting in the car with his book open on his lap. He looked up at me. I looked at him. "Everything okay?" he said. "Everything's okay," I said. I started the car. It's been 19 months since that night in the hospital. Marcus is 11 now, almost 12. He still reads constantly. He still speaks carefully and rarely. But this year he started laughing more. Not performed laughing, not the polite kind. The real kind, the kind that catches him off guard and makes him look briefly startled by his own happiness. Last week I heard him on the back porch laughing so hard at something his school friend said on the phone that he had to sit down on the steps. I stood in the kitchen and did not move for 2 full minutes so I wouldn't interrupt it. The company is doing well, the Chicago contract renewed. I hired a new VP of operations, someone younger, someone who had never once lent me money or cried in my car or used 22 years of friendship as a currency she could eventually cash out. I slept better the first week after that hire than I had in 3 years. Ryan is in the middle of a legal process that will likely conclude sometime next year. I don't think about him often. When I do, it's briefly and with the kind of detachment you feel toward a mistake you fully acknowledged and moved past. That's done. That's corrected. Karen has not contacted me. I prefer it that way. What I want to tell you, the thing that still catches in my throat when I try to say it out loud, happened on an ordinary Saturday morning about 3 months ago. Marcus and I were having breakfast. He had his book. I had the newspaper. No plan, no agenda, just a Saturday, and out of nowhere he looked up from the page and said, "I always knew you weren't going to die." I looked at him. "Yeah?" I said. "Yeah," he said. And he looked back down at his book. That was it. The whole conversation. I got up and went to the bathroom and sat on the edge of the tub under the fluorescent light, the same kind of light he'd sat under that night in the hospital when he wrote 6 words on a piece of paper that changed everything. And I let myself cry in a way I hadn't allowed until that moment. I built a business from a spare bedroom. I survived a surgery that my husband was banking on killing me. I survived a betrayal that came from the 2 people I would have trusted with my life. But none of that is the thing I'm most proud of. The thing I'm most proud of is that somewhere along the way, probably without even knowing it was happening, I created a home safe enough that a child who had every reason to stay silent chose not to. He walked 22 minutes through a hospital in the middle of the night. He put a note in a doctor's pocket. He went back to bed without telling anyone, because he trusted that what he did would be enough. And it was. People will use you. They will look at everything you've built and see a resource, a bank account, a contact list, a safety net they can drop into when they need it and climb out of when they don't. But occasionally, if you're paying attention, if you're actually listening, someone will show you who they really are. Not with a speech, not with a grand gesture, with 6 words and a folded piece of paper at 2 a.m. Marcus is my son. I am his mother. That is the only thing that has ever been completely and entirely true. And everything else was just noise I finally stopped listening to. So I want to ask you something, and I really want you to answer in the comments right now. If you were Marcus, if you were 10 years old, in a strange hospital, and you knew something that the adults around you didn't want you to know, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have said something? Would you have had the courage to walk those hallways alone? Tell me. I'm reading every single comment.